Hey there, I'm Mrs. Pates. I teach 7 honors to 6th graders, and we are going to be working today with some circles. So the first thing you need is you need a circle. So I have a paper plate and I cut the center out of it. So I have my circle. You also need a ruler. I told my class you needed 2 colors, 4 would actually be better. You need some tape. You need a pair of scissors. And you need a piece of paper that you're going to glue everything to. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our circle. We're going to fold it in half. Actually, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trace the circumference of the circle. So let's do that first. So make sure that you're doing this on something where you won't get in trouble if you go off the paper. So I'm just going to use my marker to go around the edge of my circle so that I've got the circumference marked. Okay, so that's first thing. Mark the circumference of your circle. Okay, it doesn't have to be great, but you do need to be able to see it. So that's why I'm using markers. If you have colored pencils, you might have to go a little crazy with it. So I've got the circumference of my circle marked. The second thing I'm going to be doing is I am going to now fold my circle in half. And by folding my circle in half, I have created a diameter. So remember that the diameter is the longest line in a circle. It goes from one side to the other and it has to pass through the middle. So I'm going to take a different colored marker and I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to lay my ruler on my diameter and I am going to trace that so that I can really see it. So I'm going to mark my diameter right here. Okay. All right, so I've got a nice line on my circle with my diameter marked. And then I'm going to show you this. I did my circumference on the wrong side of my circle, so I'm changing it because one side of the paper plate is shiny. I'm using dry erase markers, and I'm afraid it's going to rub off, and you need that to see it. Okay, so here's my circle with my diameter marked. I'm going to cut along the diameter. So I'm going to, oh, nope, first, I'm going to shade one side of the circle one color and the other side another color. So before you cut it, shade one side of your circle one color, and you don't have to do a great job on the coloring. You just have to get it shaded in. So something like that. You can do, so if you only have a few colors, you can just shade one side, leave the other side white. But I want mine to be fancy, so I'm going to shade the other side. All right, so now I've got my circle and I've got my 2 halves. One half is shaded white or green, one half is shaded pink. My circumference is orange, my circumference is black, my diameter is orange. Here is my circle. Now I'm going to cut along the diameter. So please cut along the diameter. And now I have 2 semicircles, right? All right, and then I'm going to place these on top of one another. And then I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. So I'm going to try to find the center of this, and I'm just going to cut so that I'm creating fourths. So I'm just going to cut right up here. So now I have 4 pieces of circle. And then I'm going to cut each of my quarter circles in half. So I've split my circle into eighths. All right, so now I've got 4 here, and then I need to do the other side here. They don't have to be exactly fourths, but you want to do a pretty good job of it. And then I've got my other 4 here. All right, so the next thing you're going to do is you are going to, so now I've got all these wedges of circles. You are going to attach these to a piece of paper. And the way you're going to attach them, this is the important part. So I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to take my taper glue, and I'm going to put one of my circles right here, one of my 8 circles right here. So one of my wedges right there. And I'm just going to tape that down on my paper. I'm kind of doing it so it's hanging off a little bit because I'm a little worried that I'm going to run out of paper. So here's my first wedge. It's taped down. I've got it pointing up. Now I'm going to take a wedge of a different color. So this is very important that you're alternating colors. So my other color was the green, and I'm going to put that next to it so that they are going together like this. So it's going to be up, down, up, down, up, down. So you're going to work your way all the way across this paper. And I'm, like I said, I'm using tape. So I'm taping these down on my paper So I did pink, I did green, now I'm going to do pink again. So you want your wedges to be lined up exactly, and we're just going to work our way across our paper like this. So we've got up, down, keep going. You're going to use all of them. If you have two that are the same color next to each other, you need to unglue because you want to have them alternating. Okay, so keep taping and keep taping. And got two more to go. Okay, and I did a pretty good job, so it's not going to hang too much off the end of my paper. If you've got where your paper isn't big enough, you can tape two pieces of paper together and do it that way. You want to have a pretty good sized circle. So for those of you who didn't have a paper plate at home, on Canvas I had a link to a circle so you could go there and cut that out. All right, so here's what I've got. So I've got up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay, so we said that we had the outside of my circle. So on my paper here, I am going to write, and remember that the outside of the circle is called the circumference because circum means to go around. So we've got the circumference. So I'm going to take a pencil or a pen, and I'm going to write that the circumference of my circle is black. And then the diameter of my circle was orange. So you're using whatever color you used, okay? And then my halves of circles were the other colors. Okay, so I have my circumference is black, and I have that my diameter was orange. But if you look at the circle, you see that I've got this orange right here and this orange right here. Well, that's not the diameter. What is that? Well, that's the radius. So my radius is also orange. And I want you to remember that the radius is half of the diameter. So this distance here, this radius right here is half the diameter. All right, so I need you to look at the whole figure. If I were to draw around this, I'm going to use my ruler and my black marker because that's the circumference. And I have, for me, I have the black at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take my marker and draw along the bottom and draw along the top of my paper here. And then I'm also gonna, on the left-hand side, I've got a little bit of a space right here. So I'm gonna exactly also draw on the end here. And then I'm gonna draw on the other end here. So if you look at this, if you just look at the black right here around my figure, this almost could be a parallelogram. Yes, I know the bottom part is bumpity, but that's important. So on your paper, you should have the circumference, which is black. We've got the diameter, which was orange. The radius is also orange in this case. And so now we have around the outside, we have that we've kind of created a parallelogram. So I need you to write parallelogram on your paper. And on the parallelogram, we need to remember that in a parallelogram, bases and heights always come together at right angles. So I make my letters a little bit blocky. So I've got this parallelogram where the base and the height come together at a right angle. So if I'm looking at my parallelogram and I'm thinking about it, here's my base right down here. So I need you to pause the video and think about what the base is in terms of the circle. So what is the base of this parallelogram in terms of the circle? So remember we said in terms of means you're going to be including stuff about the circle. So think about the circle. What is the base of the parallelogram? And write that on your paper. So the base of this parallelogram is either the circumference divided by 2 or half of the circumference, because remember, dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. So that's what the base is. All right, so let's think about the circumference now in terms of pi. So please write down what the circumference is in terms of pi, which means we're not going to use 3.14. We're going to use pi in place of circumference. So I want you to write both circumference formulas that you know in terms of pi. So put that at the bottom of your paper. So you should have written that the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, or the circumference is equal to 2 pi r, 2 times pi times the radius. All right, so we're thinking about this circle. This circle no longer has a diameter because I cut it in half. So let's think about the circle, the circumference of the circle, just in terms of r. So I'm going to be using this one right here. Okay, I'm going to use 2 pi r because in this that I built, I only have a radius. I no longer have a diameter because I cut it in half. All right, so up here we said that the base of this was 1/2, or the circumference divided by 2. So I need to take this and I need to divide this by 2. So 2 pi r over 2, because all fractions mean divide. So if I do that division, I wind up with this distance here. This base of this parallelogram, and that's air quotes, is going to be pi r. So in terms of pi, the base of this parallelogram is pi r. All right, so now we're going to look for the height. And the height of the parallelogram, in a perfect world, if I cut this into a million little pieces, they would be standing more upright. And so the height is actually the radius. So you'll recall that the formula for the area of a parallelogram is base times height. In this configuration here, the base in terms of r is pi r. So write that underneath the b. Okay, so the base is pi r. The height is r. So since we don't have an angry parallelogram and it's not pi r, it's going to be pi r times r. So it would be pi r squared. That is why the formula for the area of a parallelogram is pi r squared. Make sure you've got this ready to go. We'll be talking about it on Monday. Thank you. I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.